"Sir, I only need milk for my baby brother." The little girl's voice was so quiet it almost disappeared beneath the wind. Yet somehow it stopped a billionaire in the middle of turning away. Ethan Whitmore looked down at the cracked baby bottle in her hands, then at the sleeping infant pressed against her chest. For one strange second, neither the security guards nor the woman standing beside him spoke. And years later, Ethan would remember that silence long before he remembered the truth hidden inside it. 40 minutes earlier, the Whitmore estate had been glowing like a postcard. The charity gala had ended less than an hour ago. Luxury sedans rolled away from the circular driveway. The last photographers had packed their equipment. Beyond the iron gates, rain mist drifted through the yellow beams of the security lights. Inside the mansion, crystal chandeliers reflected warm gold across polished marble floors. Everything looked perfect. Ethan hated how much effort perfection required. He loosened his tie as he stepped through the front hall. Vanessa Crane followed beside him, elegant as always, her expensive perfume lingering in the air long after she moved. She was laughing softly about a donor she had charmed during the fundraiser. Ethan only half listened. His attention drifted toward a forgotten object sitting on a console table near the entrance. A glass of milk, barely touched. One of the catering staff must have left it there hours ago. Strange, he thought. A room full of people with more food than they could finish, and somehow the sight of an abandoned glass of milk felt sadder than it should. Before he could think more about it, the motion alert from the front gate appeared on his phone. Security camera activity. The screen displayed a small figure standing outside the estate. Ethan frowned. At this hour, the guard at the gate was already moving. Through the camera feed he could see a child. Small, motionless, holding something. Ethan turned around. "Wait," he said. The drive to the gate took less than a minute. By the time he arrived, the guard had already stepped outside the security booth. Rain dotted the pavement. The little girl stood beneath a flickering lamp, wearing a coat at least 2 sizes too big. In her arms was a baby wrapped in an old gray blanket. Vanessa stopped beside Ethan and immediately frowned. "No," she said under her breath. "Absolutely not." The girl didn't move closer, didn't beg, didn't cry. She simply held up a baby bottle. Empty. Completely empty. The plastic was cloudy from years of use. A strip of clear tape wrapped around one side where a crack had once formed. "Sir," she said. Her voice trembled from exhaustion, not fear. "I only need milk for my baby brother." The baby stirred weakly against her shoulder. Ethan stared at the bottle. Something tightened inside his chest. He couldn't explain why. Vanessa crossed her arms. "The shelter downtown is open all night," she said sharply. "She shouldn't be here." The little girl nodded once. "I went there. Then go back." Another nod. "They ran out." The guard shifted uncomfortably. Rain tapped against the metal gate. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled across the dark sky. Ethan looked closer at the child for the first time. Wet shoes, thin gloves, exhausted eyes. And yet there was something unusual about the way she stood. Not defeated, not pleading. As if she had already accepted being turned away and was simply asking one last question before the door closed forever. Then his gaze dropped to the bottle again. Near the bottom, almost hidden beneath the old tape, someone had written 3 faded words in blue marker years ago. The rain had washed most of it away, but one word was still visible. Lena. The name lingered in Ethan Whitmore's mind long after he read it. Lena. Rain slid down the side of the baby bottle as the little girl tightened her grip around it. For a moment, nobody spoke. The security light buzzed overhead. Somewhere beyond the estate walls, tires hissed across wet pavement. Vanessa was the first to break the silence. "This is ridiculous," she said, her tone controlled but sharp. "She's a child standing outside a gated mansion after midnight. Ethan, don't turn this into something it isn't." Maya didn't look at her. Her attention remained on the baby sleeping against her shoulder. Noah's tiny face was pale. Beneath the blanket, his breathing sounded shallow. Ethan's eyes dropped to the infant's wrist. The paper hospital bracelet was still there. Wrinkled, damp, half-torn. How old is he? Ethan asked quietly. 8 months, Maya answered. And your mother? Maya hesitated. Not because she didn't want to answer, because she seemed to be choosing the exact words. She went to work yesterday morning. Ethan noticed she said yesterday. Not today. Yesterday. What kind of work? Kitchen work. Where? At the community center near St. Mercy. Vanessa immediately folded her arms tighter. There are 3 community centers near St. Mercy. Maya nodded. The one with the blue awning. Her answer came instantly. No hesitation. Ethan filed that away. Children making up stories usually searched for details. This girl remembered them. The rain intensified. One of the guards shifted his weight and glanced toward Ethan, silently asking whether they should end this conversation. Instead, Ethan stepped closer to the gate. May I see the bracelet? Maya carefully adjusted Noah and held out the tiny wrist. The paper band was smudged, but the printed date remained visible. Ethan read it twice. Admitted. 8:42 p.m. Yesterday. His jaw tightened slightly. If the baby had been at the hospital yesterday evening, why was an 8-year-old standing alone outside a mansion after midnight? Something about the timeline felt wrong. Not dramatic, just wrong. Inside the guard station, a television murmured softly with late-night weather forecasts. The ordinary sound somehow made the scene feel even stranger. Ethan reached into his coat pocket and pulled out his phone. He opened the camera and discreetly photographed the hospital bracelet. Vanessa noticed immediately. You're taking pictures now? She asked. Just checking something. His voice remained calm. Maya watched him silently. Then she said something unexpected. The lady at the desk told us not to lose it. Ethan looked up. The hospital bracelet? She nodded. She said people forget things when they're scared. The sentence landed harder than it should have. Vanessa exhaled impatiently. Enough. Give her money for a cab if you want. Then let security handle it. Maya shook her head before Ethan could respond. I don't want money. Vanessa blinked. What? I asked for milk. The little girl looked down at Noah. Money takes longer. Another silence followed. Ethan studied her face. There was exhaustion there. Fear too. But no performance. No rehearsed desperation. Then Maya slowly reached into the oversized coat pocket hanging near her hip. My mom told me to keep this safe, she said. She pulled out a folded receipt, softened by rain and handled so many times the edges were beginning to tear. Ethan barely glanced at it at first. Then his eyes caught a logo at the top. Whitmore Hope Foundation, the charity bearing his family's name. And beneath it, printed less than 24 hours earlier, was a line that made the cold rain suddenly feel much colder. Payment status. Delayed pending approval. Ethan did not ask why a payment receipt from his own foundation had ended up in the coat pocket of a 9-year-old girl standing outside his gate at 12:17 in the morning. Not yet. He only held the damp paper beneath the security light and read the words again, slower this time, as if the sentence might change if he gave it enough time. Payment delayed pending approval. Vanessa's smile returned too quickly. It was small, polished, almost sympathetic. That doesn't mean anything, she said. Administrative delays happen all the time. The foundation processes hundreds of cases. Maya looked up at her. My mom said it wasn't a case. It was her paycheck. The guard lowered his eyes. Ethan noticed. So did Vanessa. Children hear things wrong, Vanessa said, softer now, which somehow made it colder, especially when adults are under stress. Maya did not argue. She shifted Noah higher on her hip and reached into the same pocket again. Her fingers searched carefully, like someone handling something more important than money. When her hand came out, she was holding a folded paper, creased so many times the edges had turned soft. She gave me this before the ambulance came, Maya whispered. Ethan took it. It was not a dramatic document. No logo. No official stamp. Just a page torn from a small notebook, written in hurried blue ink. St. Mercy Emergency Room. Cardiac Unit. Ask for Nurse Paula. Do not lose Noah's bracelet. Underneath that, in smaller writing, was a phone number. Ethan stared at the line above the number. Cardiac unit. Your mother has a heart condition? Maya nodded. She works anyway. Vanessa made a quiet sound, almost a sigh. A lot of people work while they're sick, Ethan. It was the kind of sentence that looked reasonable from far away and cruel up close. Maya's eyes moved to Vanessa for the first time. She works standing up. The words were simple, but they cut through the rain. Ethan folded the paper carefully instead of stuffing it away. What time did the ambulance come? He asked. 8:42, Maya said immediately. That's the time on his bracelet. Ethan glanced back at the baby. No. That's when he was admitted. Maya shook her head once. No, sir. That's when the lady put the bracelet on Noah after Mama fell. She said babies can't sit in the emergency room with no name on paper. Ethan's face did not change, but something behind his eyes sharpened. A child could forget dates. She could confuse names. But she remembered procedure. She remembered what adults said when they did not think a child was listening. From inside Vanessa's coat, a phone vibrated. Once, then again. She slipped one hand into her pocket and silenced it without looking, but not before Ethan saw the name flash across the screen. Martin. Vanessa caught his glance and smiled faintly. It's probably the event team, she said. They always panic after fundraisers. Ethan said nothing. Maya watched Vanessa's hand remain inside the pocket even after the phone stopped buzzing. Then Maya spoke, barely above the rain. That name was on Mama's paper too. Vanessa turned to her. What name? Maya looked at Ethan, not Vanessa. Martin. He told Mama if she kept asking about the money, she shouldn't come back Monday. For the first time, Vanessa's expression slipped. Only for half a second. A blink held too long. A smile that forgot where to sit. Ethan saw it. The guard saw it. Maya saw it too, and her small fingers tightened around the empty bottle. Ethan unfolded the receipt again, angling it toward the gate light. At the bottom, beneath the payment status line, there was a faded approval code printed in gray ink. The first 5 letters were almost washed away by rain, but the final signature field was still clear enough to read. Me Hale. The letters M. Hale seemed to glow beneath the security light. Nobody spoke for a second. Then Vanessa laughed softly, the way people laughed when they wanted a room to believe something was harmless. Martin Hale manages dozens of payroll approvals, she said. His name is on hundreds of documents. That proves absolutely nothing. Ethan folded the receipt again. Maybe. His voice remained calm. Too calm. Vanessa knew that tone. It meant he was thinking, and thinking was dangerous. It's after midnight, she continued. This child is exhausted. The baby needs food. None of that changes because a name appears on a receipt. The statement sounded reasonable, even compassionate. One of the guards nodded slightly. Another looked away. Maya noticed both reactions. She noticed everything. Ethan finally looked toward the mansion. Warm light spilled from the windows. Somewhere inside, a grandfather clock chimed the quarter hour. Bring them inside, he said. Vanessa turned immediately. Ethan, just for a few minutes. You can't be serious. It's raining. That ended the argument publicly, but not privately. Minutes later, Maya found herself standing in a kitchen larger than the apartment she shared with her mother. White marble counters, copper cookware hanging above an island, a refrigerator bigger than some closets. Noah sat in a high chair borrowed from storage while a housekeeper quietly prepared a bottle. The smell of warm milk filled the room. Maya remained standing. She didn't touch anything. She looked painfully small beneath the vaulted ceiling, like someone who had wandered into the wrong movie. 2 household staff members entered quietly. Then a third. None were rude. None stared openly. Yet Maya felt the same thing she had felt at expensive grocery stores and hospital waiting rooms. The sense that she was being evaluated before anyone knew her name. Vanessa leaned against the counter. Maya, right? The little girl nodded. You said your mother worked for the foundation. Yes, ma'am. And you're certain about that? Maya blinked. I used to wait for her after school. Children misunderstand workplaces all the time. Maya didn't answer. Vanessa smiled. Maybe it was another charity. It wasn't. The answer came instantly. Vanessa's smile tightened. How do you know? Maya pointed toward a framed photograph hanging near the breakfast area. Ethan standing beside a ribbon-cutting ceremony. The Whitmore Hope Foundation logo behind him. Because that picture is on the wall at her work too. Silence. Tiny. Brief. But real. Ethan noticed it. So did the housekeeper. Vanessa changed direction immediately. Maya, if your mother was having payroll issues, there are proper channels. Adults handle those things. Maya looked down at Noah. She tried. And nobody called back. Vanessa folded her arms. That's not evidence. Maya reached for the bottle lying beside Noah's chair. Not to feed him. To hold it. The cracked bottle seemed to anchor her somehow. No, ma'am, she said quietly. The evidence is still in Mama's coat. Ethan's eyes lifted. Vanessa's expression did not change. But one of her fingers stopped moving against her sleeve. What evidence? Ethan asked. Maya hesitated. For the first time all night, uncertainty crossed her face. Not fear. Loyalty. She was deciding whether she was allowed to say more. Mama said not to let anyone throw it away. Before Ethan could ask another question, a man entered the kitchen carrying a tablet. Gray suit, silver tie, professional smile. Richard Bennett. Family attorney. Vanessa visibly relaxed the second she saw him. Good, she said. Richard's here. Bennett greeted everyone politely before crouching slightly toward Maya. You must be Maya. His voice was warm, practiced. Mr. Whitmore asked me to help sort a few things out. Maya nodded. Bennett glanced at the receipt, then at the hospital bracelet, then at Ethan. These situations can become confusing very quickly, he said carefully, especially when children are involved. Ethan studied him. Meaning? Bennett smiled faintly. Meaning? Memories are imperfect. Documents get misunderstood. It's important not to jump to conclusions. Again, perfectly reasonable, perfectly polite, perfectly dismissive. Maya lowered her eyes. For a moment it looked like the adults had successfully taken control of the conversation. Then Noah shifted in his chair. The blanket slipped from his lap. A folded hospital intake sheet slid onto the floor. Nobody noticed except Maya, and when she picked it up, her eyes stopped on one line near the bottom. Then she slowly looked toward Vanessa. Under emergency contact, someone had already written a name.
Martin Hale. Martin Hale.
The name sat on the hospital intake sheet like a stain nobody could explain. The kitchen suddenly felt quieter. Even the hum of the refrigerator seemed distant. Maya looked from the paper to Ethan. I told you Mama wrote his name down. Richard Bennett extended a hand politely. May I see that? Maya didn't give it to him. Not immediately. She folded the paper once and looked at Ethan first. It was a small gesture, but Ethan noticed. The child was not protecting a piece of paper. She was protecting her mother. Only after Ethan nodded did Maya hand it over. Bennett studied the form. Emergency contacts can be entered by anyone at intake, he said. Hospitals make mistakes. Again, a reasonable explanation. Again, one that sounded complete until you looked too closely. Ethan reached for the sheet himself. Martin Hale's name was there. So was a phone number. What caught his attention wasn't the contact information. It was the handwriting. He stared at it for several seconds. Not because he recognized it, because he almost did. Somewhere in the back of his memory, something tugged. Vanessa stepped forward. Ethan, this is becoming absurd. A sick employee writes down the name of a foundation manager, and suddenly everyone thinks there's a conspiracy. Nobody answered. Noah drank quietly from the bottle now. The soft sound of swallowing was strangely loud in the silence. Maya looked toward the baby and then toward the oversized coat draped over the back of her chair. There's something else, she said. Vanessa immediately turned. Maya, sweetheart, if your mother is ill, we can help her. but people often misunderstand paperwork. Maya ignored the comment. She reached into the coat pocket and pulled out an old cell phone. The device looked at least 10 years old. The screen was cracked across one corner. A strip of clear tape held the battery cover in place. Ethan felt an unexpected chill. "Mama told me not to let anybody take this," Maya said. "Not even if they offered money." Bennett's eyes narrowed slightly. Vanessa's smile disappeared for a fraction of a second. Maya held the phone with both hands. Not like a child holding a toy, like someone carrying evidence. "Does it work?" Ethan asked. "Sometimes." Maya pressed the power button. Nothing happened. Then, after a few seconds, the screen flickered weakly to life. 5% battery. The lock screen appeared. There were no family photos. No wallpaper. Just a black background and a single notification. One saved voicemail. Unheard. Ethan leaned forward. "Have you listened to it?" Maya shook her head. "Mama said not to." "Why?" "Because she said if she ever got too scared to tell the truth herself, then somebody else would need to hear it." Nobody moved. Rain tapped softly against the kitchen windows. Somewhere deeper in the mansion, a grandfather clock marked another quarter hour. Ethan felt the strange sensation that the room had begun tilting long before anyone noticed. "Play it," Vanessa said suddenly. Too quickly, too casually. Maya looked at her, then at Ethan. Again, she waited for his answer, not Vanessa's. Ethan nodded. Maya pressed the message. Static crackled first. Then a woman's voice. Tired. Breathing hard. "Lena Brooks. If anything happens to me." The recording cut out. Dead battery. The phone went black. Nobody spoke. Maya's shoulders sank slightly, but she did not panic. "It always does that," she whispered. Ethan stared at the dark screen. One sentence. That was all. Yet it lodged inside him like a splinter. "If anything happens to me, not if I lose my job, not if I get sick. If anything happens to me." Slowly, Ethan held out his hand. Maya placed the phone into it. He turned it over once, twice. Then his thumb froze against the back cover. Wedged beneath the clear tape was something barely visible. A second memory card. Hidden. The hidden memory card was smaller than Ethan expected. A thin rectangle tucked beneath old tape, concealed so carefully that nobody would have noticed it unless they were looking for a reason to doubt appearances. Ethan turned the phone over in his hand. Across the kitchen, Vanessa forced a small smile. "People save all kinds of things on old devices," she said. "Family photos, medical records." Ethan nodded once. "Maybe." He slipped the phone into his jacket pocket. Not onto the counter. Not into Bennett's hands. His own pocket. Maya noticed. So did Vanessa. The difference was that only one of them seemed relieved. The kitchen gradually returned to motion. The housekeeper rinsed a bottle at the sink. Water ran softly against stainless steel. Noah's eyelids drooped as he drank. For a brief moment, the mansion felt almost ordinary. Then Ethan pulled out his phone and sent 2 messages. The first went to his chief technology officer. "Retrieve all archived Foundation payroll records for the last 3 years. Confidential." The second went to a private investigator who had worked for him quietly for nearly a decade. "I need background verification on Martin Hale. Tonight."
No explanations. No accusations.
Just questions. Ethan had built a billion-dollar company by learning that panic created noise while patience uncovered truth. Across the room, Bennett watched him carefully. "Should I contact St. Mercy?" the attorney asked. "Not yet." Ethan's answer came instantly. "Why?" Bennett asked. Ethan glanced toward Maya. "Because if someone is hiding something, I'd rather they keep thinking they're safe." The words sounded casual. They weren't. Vanessa lowered her eyes toward her coffee cup. The spoon inside clicked softly against ceramic. Once, twice, a tiny sound. Yet Maya's attention shifted immediately. Children listened differently than adults. Ethan was beginning to understand that. "Can I ask you something?" he said. Maya nodded. "If your mother thought something was wrong, why didn't she come to me directly?" Maya looked surprised by the question. Not defensive.
Sad.
She tried. The answer arrived so quickly that Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. What do you mean? Maya hesitated. Then she reached into her coat again. This time she removed a small stack of folded papers secured by a rubber band. Not receipts. Not bills. Letters. Ethan accepted them carefully. The envelopes were addressed to Whitmore Hope Foundation headquarters. Attention, Executive Office. Several had never been opened. Return to sender stamps covered the corners. Ethan stared at them. One envelope had been mailed 14 months earlier. Another 9 months earlier. Another 3 weeks ago. Maya watched his face. Mama said maybe rich people don't read their own mail. Nobody laughed. Did she tell you what was inside? Ethan asked. Maya shook her head. She said the truth shouldn't need a child to explain it. Silence settled over the kitchen. Outside, rain crawled down the dark windows. Somewhere upstairs, a washing machine hummed through a late-night cycle. Ethan looked at the unopened envelopes again. He remembered charity reports praising efficiency, monthly briefings, board meetings.
Martin Hale presenting polishet spreadsheets.
Vanessa defending budget decisions. Everything had looked clean, professional, controlled. Suddenly those qualities felt less reassuring. Bennett cleared his throat. Mr. Whitmore, if these letters were routed through administrative review, they may never have reached your office. Ethan looked up. Who handled administrative review? Bennett opened his mouth, stopped, then answered. Martin's department. No one spoke for several seconds. Maya lowered her eyes toward Noah's blanket. I don't want anybody fired, she said quietly. The statement startled everyone, even Ethan. You don't. She shook her head. I just want my mom safe, and the other people too. Ethan stared at her. Most adults asked for punishment before truth. This child was asking for protection before revenge. His phone vibrated. A response from the investigator. Faster than expected. Ethan opened the message. 3 lines. Martin Hale background review initiated. 1 additional note. Subject listed Vanessa Crane as emergency contact on all personnel. Records for the past 6 years. Ethan read the sentence twice, then slowly lowered the phone. For years he had assumed Martin reported to Vanessa because she supervised foundation outreach. Looking at the message now, another possibility emerged. Maybe Martin hadn't been working for Vanessa. Maybe Vanessa had been the one he was protecting all along. The message remained on Ethan's screen long after everyone else had stopped looking at it. Vanessa Crane listed as Martin Hale's emergency contact. Not a supervisor. Not a reference. Emergency contact. The distinction was small. Important things often were. Ethan slipped the phone back into his pocket. His face revealed nothing. That was what made people underestimate him. They assumed silence meant uncertainty. Most of the time, silence meant he had already started deciding. It's late, Vanessa said carefully. Everyone's tired. Ethan nodded. You're right. The answer seemed to relax her. We'll sort everything out in the morning. Of course. Again calm. Agreeable. Almost gentle. Maya looked at him. She wasn't old enough to understand corporate politics or financial fraud. But she understood something else. She understood when an adult was pretending not to know what they already knew. Noah had fallen asleep against her shoulder. The empty bottle rested beside him on the table. Ethan glanced at it once before turning toward Bennett. Would you ask Martin to join us? Bennett blinked. Tonight. He's still awake. Ethan's tone remained casual. His phone has been busy enough. No one missed the way Vanessa's fingers tightened around her coffee cup. 23 minutes later, Martin Hale arrived. His suit jacket was damp from the rain. His smile appeared before he entered the kitchen. Mr. Whitmore, Vanessa said there was a concern regarding payroll. Concern. Not accusation. Not investigation. Concern. Ethan gestured toward a chair. Sit down. Martin obeyed. The atmosphere remained strangely polite, almost friendly, which somehow felt more dangerous. On the kitchen island sat 3 objects. the delayed payment receipt, the hospital intake form, the old phone. Ethan had arranged them neatly, like exhibits. Nobody had officially introduced yet. Martin glanced at them once and looked away. Too quickly. Ethan noticed. So did Maya. A security camera mounted above the kitchen entrance blinked its tiny green light. Steady. Recording. Ethan asked only one question. Do you remember Lena Brooks? Martin smiled immediately. Of course. One of our hourly workers. Good employee? As far as I know. Reliable? Generally. Ethan nodded. Then why wasn't she paid? Martin didn't hesitate. Administrative delay. Same phrase. Same wording. Almost rehearsed. Ethan leaned back slightly. What kind of delay? Documentation review. Which documents? For the first time, Martin paused. Barely. Half a second. Then, I'd have to check the file. Ethan looked toward Maya. Maya. The little girl sat up straighter. What did your mother say? Martin smiled patiently, the way adults smiled when humoring children. Maya ignored it. Mama said they kept asking for paperwork she already gave them. Martin's smile remained in place. That's not unusual. Maya nodded. Then why did Mr. Hale tell her not to come back Monday? The room went quiet. Not dramatically. Quiet the way a room becomes quiet when everybody suddenly notices the same thing. Martin blinked. Once. I never said that. Maya looked down at Noah's blanket. Then back up. You did.
No.
You did.
No anger. No shouting.
Just certainty. Ethan watched Martin carefully. The man wasn't reacting to the accusation. He was reacting to the detail, to the confidence, to the fact that a child remembered exact words. Ethan picked up the old phone. Interesting thing about memory, he said softly. Sometimes children remember conversations better than adults. Martin's eyes flickered toward the device. There. Just for a second. Fear. Tiny. Real. Ethan set the phone back down. Untouched. Unplayed. A test. Nothing more. Martin swallowed. Vanessa immediately stepped in. This is getting ridiculous. We're discussing hearsay from a frightened child. Maya lowered her eyes again. Then quietly said, if it's hearsay, why did he look at the phone before anyone mentioned the recording? Nobody spoke. Martin's head turned toward her. Slowly. Not angry. Not yet. But something colder. Something calculating. Then he noticed Ethan watching him. And for the first time that entire night, Martin Hale seemed to understand something important. The little girl was no longer standing alone. No one moved after Maya spoke. The rain continued tapping softly against the windows. The green camera light above the kitchen door blinked once. Twice. Martin Hale looked at the little girl. Vanessa looked at Ethan. Ethan looked at the phone resting on the marble countertop. For several long seconds, nobody seemed willing to be the first person to speak. Then Ethan reached into his pocket and removed the hidden memory card. Martin's face lost a little color. Not enough for most people to notice. Enough for Ethan. What is that? Bennett asked quietly. Ethan placed the tiny card beside the old phone. Something somebody didn't want lost. Maya lowered her eyes. Mama taped it there herself. Ethan nodded once. Earlier, while everyone had been arguing, his technology director had already sent a secure recovery kit to the estate. It now sat beside the kitchen island. Simple. Unremarkable. The kind of device nobody noticed until it started revealing things. Ethan inserted the memory card. The screen illuminated. A loading bar appeared. 43 files. Audio. Images. Documents. Nobody spoke while the files transferred. Martin's phone vibrated inside his pocket. He didn't touch it. Vanessa reached for her coffee and realized her hand wasn't steady enough to lift the cup. The transfer completed. Ethan opened the first folder. Payroll records. The room remained silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. Row after row of documents filled the screen. Employee names. Payment dates. Approval signatures. Ethan scrolled. Then stopped. Lena Brooks. Delayed. 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 For consecutive months. Every approval override attached to the same account.
Martin Hale.
Ethan's jaw tightened. There are explanations for payroll flags, Martin said carefully. Compliance reviews. Missing documentation. Ethan said nothing. He opened the next file.
Audioarchive.
Maya's small hands tightened around Noah's blanket.
Mama.
Said that one matters. Ethan selected the oldest recording. Lena's voice filled the kitchen. Tired, nervous, but clear. Mr. Hale, my paperwork was approved 3 times already. A man's voice answered. Martin's voice. Nobody disputed that. Then why haven't I been paid? Lena asked. Silence. Then another voice entered the recording. A woman's voice. Calm.
Familiar.
Ethan froze. Vanessa froze too. Not because she heard the voice. Because she recognized it before it spoke the next sentence. Stop asking questions, Lena. The kitchen seemed to shrink. Ethan stared at the speaker. The voice continued. You need this job more than we need you. Maya looked down. She didn't look surprised. She looked sad. Like someone hearing a story she already knew the ending to. Ethan played the recording again. The same sentence. The same voice. Vanessa's voice. Nobody denied it. Nobody could. Bennett slowly lowered his eyes. Martin stopped pretending to be confused. The room had crossed a line. Ethan opened the final folder. Images. Hundreds of photographs. Foundation reports. Staff schedules. Internal emails captured as screenshots. Then one image appeared. Ethan stared at it without breathing. It was a photograph of an envelope. One of the letters Lena had mailed to Foundation headquarters. Across the front, a red stamp had been added. Do not forward to executive office.
Authorization. V. Crane.
Ethan's face went pale. Not from anger. From recognition. Every letter. Every complaint. Every warning. Never lost. Never misplaced. Intercepted. For years. Under his own name. Inside his own foundation. Under the charity dedicated to his dead sister. Maya watched him quietly. She didn't need to explain anything. The evidence had already done it. Ethan remembered every board meeting where Vanessa had assured him operations were improving. Every speech praising transparency. Every report Martin had presented. Every time he had signed papers without asking about the people hidden behind them. His eyes dropped to the cracked baby bottle on the table. The one that had started all of this. A child had carried the truth through a storm while an empire built in his name failed to see it. Nobody in the room spoke. Finally, Ethan closed the tablet. Carefully, calmly, he placed it on the marble countertop beside the bottle. Then he looked at Bennett and said, in a voice so quiet it was somehow more frightening than shouting, call my attorney, and don't let anyone leave. The room remained silent for several seconds after Ethan spoke. Nobody argued. Nobody reached for a phone. Nobody even shifted in their seat. The evidence had removed the need for debate. Martin Hale looked down at the countertop. Vanessa stared at the dark screen of the tablet as if refusing to recognize what it contained. Bennett was already moving. He stepped away from the kitchen island and made the first of several calls. Not to the police. Not yet. To the Foundation's outside legal counsel. To the board chair. To the compliance firm Ethan had hired years ago and rarely needed. By sunrise, the process had already begun. It did not happen in a dramatic explosion. It happened through signatures, investigations, account freezes, access revocations, and emergency board meetings. The way real power often moved. Quietly, permanently. Within 48 hours, Martin Hale was suspended pending a full investigation. 3 weeks later, he was terminated. Auditors uncovered diverted payroll funds, falsified reports, and employee complaints that had been buried before reaching executive review. Vanessa's position on the Foundation board ended the same week. The engagement ended too. Not with shouting. Not with revenge. Ethan simply returned the ring. After that, there was nothing left to discuss. The Foundation released a public statement acknowledging internal failures and promising restitution. For the first time, employees were invited to speak directly to independent investigators. Many did, Stories emerged. Delayed wages, ignored complaints, pressure to stay silent. The pattern was larger than one family, larger than one night, larger than one little girl standing outside a gate in the rain. Lena Brooks recovered slowly. Her hospital bills were covered, but not as charity. As responsibility. Every dollar of unpaid wages was returned with interest. The foundation established an emergency worker protection fund overseen by people who had never worked under Martin Hale. A labor attorney helped Lena review her employment rights. For the first time in years, she no longer had to choose between medication and groceries. Maya did not ask for any of it. When Ethan offered financial assistance beyond what was owed, she asked only one question. Will the other families get help too? Ethan never forgot that. The easiest thing in the world would have been to solve her problem alone. The harder thing was fixing the system that created it. Several months later, on a quiet autumn evening, the Whitmore estate felt different. Not smaller, warmer. The front gates were still there. The security cameras still blinked above the driveway. But some invisible distance had disappeared. In the kitchen, Noah sat in a booster seat, happily kicking his feet beneath the table. Lena laughed at something the housekeeper said. The sound surprised even her. Maya sat nearby working on school assignments from a scholarship program funded by a newly reorganized foundation. Not a special favor, an opportunity she had earned. Ethan stood near the counter holding an old object in both hands. The cracked baby bottle. Clean now. Empty. Preserved. He had considered throwing it away 100 times. He never could. It reminded him of a promise he had forgotten and a lesson he almost learned too late. Maya looked up from her homework. You still keep that? She asked. Ethan smiled faintly.
Ido.
She thought about that for a moment, then closed her notebook. Good. Why good? Ethan asked. Maya glanced toward Noah, who was finishing a bottle of warm milk without a worry in the world. Then she looked back at Ethan. Because next time somebody tells you something is wrong, she said quietly, you'll probably listen sooner. Ethan could not answer right away. He looked at the bottle, then at the little girl who had carried it through the rain. Outside, the porch lights glowed against the evening sky. Inside, no one was hungry. No one was afraid. And for the first time in a very long time, the people who had been ignored were no longer invisible because the truth had finally been heard by someone powerful enough to listen.